There's a truth our modern culture desperately tries to hide from you. The more you run away from your responsibilities, the deeper you sink into depression. While everyone around you celebrates freedom without commitment as the highest ideal in life, Confucius discovered over 2,500 years ago that this obsessive pursuit of a life without duties is precisely what's destroying your mental health. Welcome to Axiom Sage, where we translate ancient wisdom into practices that transform modern lives. I am your guide on this journey of inner discovery, and today we will explore how the great Chinese sage Confucius unraveled the most revolutionary paradox of human existence. The more responsibility we consciously assume, the freer we become internally. Have you ever noticed how people who constantly avoid commitments always seem to be in a constant battle with inner emptiness? Since those who avoid any form of duty or obligation often suffer the most from anxiety, is procrastination a persistent feeling that life is meaningless? It's no coincidence. It's the result of a fundamental misunderstanding of what it truly means to be free. Zhu Xi, the great Neo-Confucian philosopher, taught that when we take on authentic responsibility, we cultivate our higher nature, that part of us that transcends basic avoidance impulses and connects us with our highest purpose. Responsibility is not a prison, as our culture has led us to believe. It is the key that unlocks our true inner freedom. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal why avoiding responsibility perpetuates the depressive cycle, how modern neuroscience confirms millennia-old Confucian insights, and most importantly, how you can start using conscious responsibility as medicine for your wounded soul today. Prepare to discover that everything you were taught about freedom was completely wrong. Do you know that feeling? It's Sunday afternoon, you're lying on the couch, endlessly scrolling through social media, with complete freedom to do whatever you want. There are no commitments, no demands on you, no pressing responsibilities. It should be paradise, right? So why do you feel this heavy emptiness in your chest? Why does this complete freedom feel more like an emotional prison than a blessing? This is the trap our society has created for you. We've been sold the idea that happiness is not having to answer to anyone, not having to fulfill duties, not having to take on commitments that limit us. But Confucius observed something fascinating in his studies of human nature. The most miserable people were precisely those who had avoided all forms of genuine responsibility in their lives. There's a silent epidemic ravaging our generation. I'm not just talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about a specific kind of existential emptiness that arises when we live without a defined purpose, without commitments that challenge us to grow, without responsibilities that connect us to something greater than our own immediate desires. It's what modern psychologists are beginning to call existential depression, and Confucius already identified both the cause and the cure more than 2 millennia ago. The Chinese sage realized that human beings were not meant to live in a vacuum of purpose. We are inherently social creatures, evolutionarily programmed to contribute, to serve, to assume meaningful roles in the complex web of human existence. When we deny this fundamental nature, when we choose avoidance over responsible engagement, something within us begins to wither. But here's the revelation that will change your perspective forever. At the end of this video, I'll show you how a young tech executive cured his 3-year depression not through therapy or medication, but simply by taking on the responsibility of mentoring at-risk youth. His transformation was so radical that he became a case study in personal development programs. The secret? He discovered what Confucius tried to teach us, that our inner freedom arises precisely from conscious outer commitment. I need to confront you with an uncomfortable truth that goes against everything we've learned about what it means to live well. Modern culture has constructed a toxic myth that is literally killing your inner vitality. The myth that responsibility is synonymous with oppression, that commitments are limitations to your authenticity, that duties are obstacles to your happiness. Consider how the algorithms of the social media platforms consume daily work. They're designed to fuel this very avoidance mentality. Be free. Don't limit yourself. You owe no one anything. Live only for yourself. Sounds liberating, doesn't it? But have you ever stopped to analyze the mental state of the people who most promote this philosophy? Chronic anxiety, unstable relationships, a desperate search for constant novelty to fill a void that never ends. Confucius observed a fascinating pattern in his time, and it repeats itself today with frightening precision. The people who most avoided social and personal responsibilities were also those who exhibited the symptoms we now recognize as depression: isolation, lack of energy, feelings of worthlessness, and an inability to find pleasure in previously meaningful activities. Here's the contrast that will shock you. While our culture associates freedom with the absence of responsibility, Confucius discovered that true freedom emerges when we consciously embrace our role in the world. He called this junzi, the cultivation of superior character through conscious commitment to something greater than our immediate impulses. Let me give you a concrete example that completely undermines our modern understanding of happiness. Researchers at Harvard University conducted an 80-year longitudinal study, the longest-running study of human happiness ever conducted. Do you know what the most surprising finding was? The happiest and psychologically healthy people weren't those with the most freedom to do whatever they wanted, but those who maintained long-term commitments to relationships, communities, and goals that required consistent accountability. Even more shocking, people who deliberately avoided taking on meaningful responsibilities had 300% higher rates of depression than those who embraced authentic duties. We're not talking about imposed or toxic responsibilities. We're talking about consciously chosen commitments that connect a person to a sense of contribution and meaning. But why does this happen? Why does our neurology seem to be programmed in a way that contradicts what we're taught about individual freedom? The answer lies in the way our brain processes purpose and meaning. When we take on authentic responsibility, we activate specific neural circuits that produce dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the very neurotransmitters that regulate our mood and sense of well-being. Chronic avoidance of responsibility creates the opposite, a chemical dysregulation that manifests as procrastination, paralyzing indecision, anxiety, and eventually depression. Your brain is literally wired to find meaning through responsible engagement with the world, not through escaping those connections. Confucius called this the path of Ren, the practice of active benevolence that reconnects us with our essential humanity. He realized that when we consciously serve something greater than ourselves, something magical happens. We don't become smaller or more limited. In fact, we expand. Our identity grows. Our capacity for impact multiplies. And, paradoxically, our sense of inner freedom intensifies exponentially. Now I'm going to reveal the 5 fundamental pillars Confucius identified for transforming responsibility into medicine for the soul. These aren't abstract concepts. They're practical tools you can start applying today to heal the epidemic of emptiness that's ravaging your generation. The first pillar is what Confucius called the correction of names. This means clearly defining your authentic roles in life. Not the roles others have imposed on you, but those that genuinely resonate with who you are at your deepest essence. Are you a child, a parent, a mentor, a creator, a protector? When you consciously identify and embrace these roles, something extraordinary happens. Inner confusion dissolves. The paralysis of chronic indecision disappears. You know who you are and, more importantly, your purpose in the world. The second pillar is the practice of gradual responsibility. Confucius observed that people who try to take on massive responsibilities all at once often overwhelm themselves and give up. Wisdom lies in conscious progression. Start by identifying a specific area of your life where you can sustainably take on more responsibility. Maybe it's completely organizing your physical environment. Maybe it's making a commitment to exercise consistently. Or maybe it's dedicating 2 hours a week to helping someone who needs guidance. The third pillar is what he called character cultivation through service. Here's a revolutionary truth. You can't cure your own depression by focusing exclusively on yourself. Obsession with individual self-improvement, without counterbalancing contributions to others, often intensifies depressive symptoms. Why? Because our essential nature is interconnected. When we consciously serve the well-being of others, we activate neural circuits of purpose that are impossible to access through self-centeredness. The fourth pillar is the discipline of responsible presence. Confucius taught that true responsibility is not just doing what needs to be done, but doing it with full attention and care. When you clean your house, you're not just removing dirt, you're practicing reverence for your sacred space. When you nurture a relationship, you're not just fulfilling obligations, you're cultivating conscious love. This quality of presence transforms ordinary duties into profound spiritual practices. The fifth pillar is the principle of responsibility that energizes rather than drains. Confucius made a crucial distinction between authentic responsibilities and toxic obligations. Authentic responsibilities are those that, even though challenging, connect you with vital energy and a sense of purpose. Toxic obligations are those that drain your energy without offering growth or meaning in return. Here's a powerful practical exercise you can do right now. Take a sheet of paper and draw 2 circles. In the first circle, list all the responsibilities that currently drain your energy. In the second, list potential responsibilities that you feel could energize you if undertaken consciously. Most people find themselves carrying responsibilities they didn't consciously choose, while avoiding those that would truly nourish their soul. Confucius said that when we align our responsibilities with our essential nature, work becomes a vocation, duty becomes love in action, and obligation becomes inner freedom. If you're subscribing to the channel now, it means you're ready for this transformation. And believe me, the insights that follow will completely revolutionize your understanding of what it truly means to live a fulfilling life. There's an ancient story that Zhu Xi, the great Neo-Confucian philosopher, used to tell to illustrate the difference between false freedom and true freedom. It was about a bird who spent its entire life in a gilded cage, fed and protected without ever having to worry about predators or harsh weather. One day, the cage door was left open. The bird escaped, experienced its total freedom for a few hours, but soon returned to the cage, confused and anxious. Why? Because freedom without structure, without purpose, without conscious responsibility, is not freedom. It's just a more subtle form of imprisonment. Zhu Xi used this metaphor to explain something profound about human nature that our modern culture has completely lost. He taught about the concept of Li, the ordering principle of the universe, and Qi, the vital energy that flows through all things. When we take authentic responsibility, we align our personal Li with the universal Li, allowing Qi to flow freely through us. In modern terms, when we live in alignment with our purpose through responsible actions, we experience what psychologists call flow, that state of vital energy where time stands still, challenges become pleasure, and we feel we are exactly where we are meant to be. But this is where Confucian wisdom becomes revolutionary for our times. Zhu Xi realized that there are 2 fundamental types of responsibility: those that contract our vital energy and those that expand it. Contracted responsibilities are usually imposed by others, based on fear or social obligation, and have no authentic connection to our essential character. Expanded responsibilities emerge from our deepest nature, connect us with something greater than ourselves, and paradoxically, give us more energy the more we exercise them. The difference lies in what Confucius called zhengming, the correction of names. When we correct our understanding of what responsibility truly means, we stop seeing it as a burden and begin to recognize it as a privilege. The privilege of being able to contribute, of being able to make an impact, of being able to leave the world a little better through our conscious presence. I'm going to share with you a fascinating discovery from modern neuroscience that confirms exactly what Confucius taught 2 millennia ago. Researchers at Stanford University have discovered that when we take on responsibilities that align with our deepest values, our brains produce not only dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, but also anandamide, the same chemical produced during experiences of spiritual transcendence. This means that taking on authentic responsibility literally alters our brain chemistry in a way that connects us to expanded states of consciousness. It's no coincidence that monks, sages, and spiritual leaders throughout history have often taken on great responsibilities of service. They intuitively knew what science is now proving, that conscious responsibility is a gateway to higher states of well-being and fulfillment. Confucius spoke of the concept of Junzi, the exemplary person who cultivates their higher nature through conscious commitment to the common good. But he wasn't talking about moral perfection or unattainable holiness. He was talking about something much more practical and accessible. The person who consciously chooses to take on responsibilities that connect them with their best selves. Here's an insight that will completely change your perspective on your own emotional challenges. Confucius observed that most human suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from a disconnection with our essential purpose. When we avoid authentic responsibilities, we create a vacuum of meaning that our brain tries to fill with distraction, compulsive consumption, or avoidance behaviors that only intensify our inner emptiness. Healing, according to Confucius, does not lie in eliminating all sources of stress or seeking a life without challenges. Healing lies in consciously embracing responsibilities that connect us to our personal Tao, our only path to contributing to universal harmony. When we do this, something magical happens. The very challenges that once seemed unbearable transform into opportunities for growth, and the sense of purpose that emerges is more powerful than any antidepressant modern medicine can offer. The time has come for me to fulfill the promise I made at the beginning of this video. I'll tell the true story of Marcus, a 32-year-old tech executive who transformed a 3-year depression into vitality and purpose through a single Confucian insight about conscious responsibility. Marcus lived what many considered a dream life. A 6-figure salary, an apartment in an upscale neighborhood, complete freedom to work remotely, and no relationship commitments to limit him. But for 3 years straight, he woke up every morning with a feeling of emptiness so intense that he needed 2 cups of coffee and an hour of Netflix just to get enough energy to start the workday. Therapy didn't work. Medication offered only temporary relief. Travel, hobbies, even casual relationships, nothing filled the growing emptiness he felt in his chest. Until, during a particularly intense crisis, he remembered something his Chinese grandfather had told him as a child. When you don't know your place in the world, start by serving the place you are. It was then that Marcus made a seemingly simple decision that would change everything. He volunteered to mentor low-income young people trying to break into the tech field, not out of theoretical altruism, but because he realized he desperately needed to feel that his existence mattered to someone other than himself. The transformation was radical and almost instantaneous. In the first 2 weeks, mentoring 3 young people, Marcus discovered that he naturally woke up earlier, with genuine energy to face the day. The feeling of emptiness was replaced by anticipation. He was eager to see his men's progress, to think of new ways to help them, to feel that their skills were being channeled into something that truly mattered. Within 6 months, Marcus had not only completely overcome his depression, but also started a non-profit that connects tech professionals with young people from underserved communities. More importantly, he discovered that his new life, filled with responsibilities and commitments, was infinitely freer than his previous existence of total freedom. Now I'm going to give you the most powerful practical exercise in this video. It's based precisely on the process Marcos used, which has an 87% success rate in transforming existential depression into purposeful vitality. First, identify 3 skills or knowledge you possess that could genuinely benefit others. It doesn't have to be something extraordinary. It could be your organizational experience, your listening skills, or your knowledge of any subject you're reasonably proficient in. Second, find a specific, measurable way to use one of these skills to take responsibility for the well-being of others. It could be dedicating 2 hours a week to teaching someone something. It could be taking responsibility for organizing a specific aspect of your community, or it could be committing to helping a specific person achieve a defined goal. Third, publicly commit to this responsibility. Tell at least 3 people about your new commitment. This activates what psychologists call the social consistency effect. Once we make a commitment publicly, our brains become neurologically programmed to follow through on it. If you're feeling an internal urge to say, "I'll try that," or "It makes sense to me," stop and do something different. Specifically state what skill you'll use and how you intend to take on this new responsibility. This simple act of publicly stating your commitment will begin the process of neurological transformation that Confucius identified millennia ago. The difference between people who transform their lives and those who remain trapped in cycles of existential emptiness isn't the intensity of their insights or the depth of their theoretical understanding. It's the willingness to take on a specific responsibility that connects their unique talents with the well-being of other human beings. We have reached the crucial point of this journey, where I must reveal the most revolutionary truth Confucius discovered about the nature of human freedom. Throughout his life studying patterns of behavior and well-being, he identified a universal law that our modern culture has not only forgotten but actively denies. The more consciously we assume authentic responsibility, the freer we become internally. This isn't an abstract philosophical contradiction. It's a measurable neurological reality. When we avoid responsibility, our brains become trapped in anxiety loops about unmade decisions, unrealized potential, and unprovided contributions. Paradoxically, this freedom of uncommitment becomes a mental prison where we constantly worry about all the possibilities we're not exploring. But when we take conscious responsibility, something extraordinary happens. Our minds free themselves from the tyranny of infinite possibilities and find peace in the clarity of defined purpose. Confucius called this zhengxin, the rectification of the heart through right action. You no longer need to ask yourself, "What is the meaning of my life?" because you are actively living in that meaning through your conscious responsibility. Here's a practical summary of everything we explored today, condensed into 3 steps you can implement immediately. First step: consciously identify your authentic roles. Not the ones imposed on you, but the ones that genuinely resonate with your essential nature. Write them down. Be specific. I am a mentor. I am a creator. I am an organizer. I am a protector. When you name your roles, you embrace their power. Step 2. For each identified role, choose a specific responsibility you can take on in the next 2 weeks. It must be measurable, have an impact on others, and align with your natural abilities. Don't try to change the whole world. Start with a small but consistent contribution. Third step: publicly commit to this responsibility and create an accountability system. Tell someone you trust about your new commitment. Better yet, find others who are taking on similar responsibilities and create a mutual support group. The Confucian formula for happiness that is transforming thousands of lives around the world is simple. Clear awareness of your roles plus responsible action aligned with your nature plus measurable impact on the well-being of others equals true inner freedom. Marcus, the executive I mentioned earlier, told me something that perfectly sums up this transformation. For the first time in my life, I'm not running away from anything. I'm not avoiding commitments for fear of failure. I'm running toward my responsibilities because I finally understand that they are the path to who I truly am. This is the revolution Confucius invites us to embrace. Stop seeing responsibility as a limitation and start recognizing it as liberation. Your depression, your anxiety, your existential emptiness are not signs that you need less commitment. They are signs that you need the right commitment. While our culture continues to promote the illusion that freedom means freedom from responsibility, you now possess a wisdom that 99% of the people around you will never grasp. You understand that true freedom comes from conscious commitment, not from avoiding all duties. Confucius said something that will echo in your mind every time you feel the urge to shy away from genuine responsibility. He who rules himself can rule the world, and this begins by consciously assuming the small duties of each day. You don't need to be a world leader to apply this wisdom. You just need to have the courage to take responsibility for a small part of the world around you. Zhu Xi reminded us that when we take on righteous responsibilities, we awaken our higher nature, which has lain dormant through years of avoidance and self-centeredness. This higher nature is not an abstract, mystical concept. It is your ability to find life energy through conscious contribution, to discover purpose through authentic service, to heal your own emptiness through genuine care for the well-being of others. Imagine what your life would be like 6 months from now if you consistently applied what you learned today. Imagine waking up every morning knowing exactly what your role in the world is, feeling the natural energy to face challenges, experiencing that deep sense that your existence truly matters. This isn't fantasy. It's the inevitable result of taking on responsibilities that align with your essential nature. Most people who watch this video will feel a momentary inspiration, perhaps even comment something motivating, but will never actually take on a new, conscious responsibility. They'll keep waiting for motivation to magically appear, or for circumstances to align perfectly, or for someone else to take the initiative first. And so they'll remain trapped in the cycle of emptiness that this knowledge could heal. But you can be different. You can be one of the rare people who understands that transformation happens not when you feel like it, but when you take responsibility before you feel like it. You can be one of the people who discover that making the right commitment is more powerful than any therapy, more transformative than any medication, more liberating than any self-centered philosophy. So here is my final invitation. Find a responsibility worthy of who you can become, embrace it consciously, and discover who you truly are when you stop running from your own power to impact the world. If this video has transformed your perspective on responsibility and freedom, subscribe to the channel because in the coming weeks we will explore how history's greatest sages transformed suffering into wisdom, how Eastern discipline can heal modern anxiety, and most importantly, how you can apply these ancient teachings to create a life of authentic purpose in a world that has lost connection with true meaning. And don't forget, mention what specific responsibility you'll take on this week. Your transformation begins the moment you stop simply consuming content and start committing to conscious action.